On this week's episode of Hockey Inside Out, we recap the Canadiens win over the San Jose Sharks and what takeaways we take from that victory. And now, where do they finish in the standings? Are they be close to the wild card or towards the bottom of the standings? And with the Habs making acquisitions of Chris Tierney and Denis Gurianov, what does that mean for the four lines moving forward? And the power play, it's found its vigor. What does that mean now moving towards the end of the year? Can they find more goals from that special teams unit? And three special Pat bonus questions that we have today on this week's episode of Hockey Inside Out. Welcome into a new episode of Hockey Inside Out. I'm your host, Moe Khan, alongside Rick Green, Stu Cowan, and we are joined by a special guest who's retiring this week, a legend in the Montreal media world, a 57-year career in journalism, the sports columnist for the Montreal Gazette, and has covered the Montreal Canadiens since 1991. Pat Hickey. Pat, welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you very much, Mo. Of course, legendary just means old.
I think it's more Hall of Fame when you get to that status of legendary, my friend. All right, guys,
legend.
Let's jump into it. The Montreal Canadiens with, if you're an alien watching the Habs game, the Montreal Canadiens, the final 12 minutes of that game against San Jose, blast off 3 goals and win 3-1 over the Sharks in San Jose. What's your takeaways from that? And plus, where do we see this team finishing now in the standings, given that they've been playing better hockey of late in the last few weeks?
Well, I think there's a good chance that they'll finish probably as high as 7 or 8 from the bottom. They're not good enough to make the playoffs, but they're too good to be in the Connor Bedard sweepstakes. This is a team that comes to play most nights. I would say that 90% of their games, they're in the games. They come to play. They work hard. Last night, they were outshot by in the first period. They played really well, I thought. And they found themselves down 1-0. A couple of defensive mistakes early in the first 2 minutes. Then San Jose came on. They were outshot. Jake Allen was fantastic. And then they managed to score 2 goals midway through the third period and an empty netter. So this is a team we talk about resilience all year, and we saw that last night.
And I think once again we saw Jake Allen giving the team a chance to win. I thought he did a great job, and a name that I've mentioned a number of times before in Caden Gooley, to see him back in the lineup and see him step in and pick up where he left off in playing I thought an excellent game. He played over 18 minutes and handled himself really well and didn't look like he was having any trouble fitting into the groove, if you will, and just a great addition to see him back there. And as far as the Canadian situation goes, with 22 games left, they've got their hands full. They got a really tough schedule with, I think, 19 of the games are against teams that are fighting for every point to try and get into the playoffs. So I think they really have their plate full with a big challenge with injuries that they've had, and it's going to be a big hill to climb. So I don't foresee them finishing anything more than probably what they're at now at 25th, 26th. Even if they were to play 500, bring them up to 78 points, it's not going to obviously make the cut, but it's just what it is, and they're going to get a pretty good reading on their guys in the last stretch here to see how well they perform and how badly they want to show up in each and every night and each and every shift. So they've got a good group. They're just going to come up short this year in a number of areas.
Well, their win over San Jose gave them 56 points, which was one more than they had all the last season. And they keep winning. I'm sure that the Tankathon fans out there for the Canadiens are going to be very upset. This team just keeps winning games they have no business winning. They're missing 10 guys. They're missing half their team to injuries, including key guys, Caulfield and guys like that, and Monahan. And they just keep winning games. And I think it just says what a great coach Marty St. Louis is. These guys are buying into what he's selling. They want to play for him. They want to win. Players don't tank. Organizations can try to tank by putting a inferior team on the ice, and the Canadiens are an inferior team because of all the injuries. but they just keep coming to play, and they keep battling, and they keep winning games. They're after the win over San Jose, they're 25th in the standings. They're 1 point behind St. Louis. So I think they're going to finish anywhere between 24th and 27th. They're not as bad as Arizona, San Jose, Chicago, Anaheim, Columbus. I think they're going to finish ahead of those guys, but they're still going to have a chance at winning the draft lottery. If you finish last, your odds of winning the lottery are 18.5%, which aren't great. And the last 2 years, the team that finished last did win the lottery, but that's only happened, I think, 11 times in the 28 years since the lottery came in. So the odds of it happening 3 years in a row aren't very good. So they're still going to have a shot at Connor Bedard, but more importantly, they're building a winning culture in the locker room. And that, I think, to me, is more important than tanking and the hope you'll get an 18.5% chance of getting Connor Bedard. I think that, especially when you have so many young guys in the lineup, Caden Gooley coming back the game against San Jose, looking like he had never missed a step. And the thing I really liked about that game, too, when Gooley scored, if you saw the look on David Savard's face, he was happier than Caden Gooley. David Savard's like the father figure on this defense, and I think he's been underrated this season for how important a role he has played in the development of all these young defensemen. Marty St. Louis spoke before the game in San Jose about how he's like an extension of the coaching staff. So it's just it's a pleasant surprise how well the Canadiens are playing. And I'm not a fan of the tanking. I don't think it does anything good. You look at teams like Buffalo, you look at teams like Edmonton that have tanked in the past, and it hasn't paid off for them. So good for the Canadiens, and happy to see that Marty St. Louis has been able to do the job he's done this season. And over a year after taking over the job, the players are still buying what he's selling.
When you look at it right now, guys, the Habs, look, if Connor Bedard is out of the question, which we think right now won't be the case, they won't get him. But they could, in theory, have 20% of the top 10 picks in this year's NHL draft, courtesy of the Florida Panthers, as we've spoken about before. So, Pat, I mean, if you're a Habs fan, isn't that the second best scenario to have 2 of the top 10 picks and really control the narrative of this draft come June?
Well, I think it helps. It's great to have the picks. You got to be able to use them properly. The Canadiens have had a couple of number 3 overall picks. Alex Galchenyuk, okay for a while, and now he's basically out of the NHL. You had Jesperi Kotkaniemi. I still think he's going to end up being a pretty decent player, but certainly not what you'd expect from a number 3 guy. His offense is going down, although he has his faceoffs are way above 50%, which is something that you wouldn't expect from the first couple of years he was here. So it's great to have the picks. You hope that that they use them properly, that they're able to get some guys. They say this is a deep draft, and we'll see how it goes. You never know until 2 or 3 years, 4 years down the line, how deep a draft is. This year, I think from last year's draft, it was not considered a great draft, and that's reflected in the fact that only 3 players from that draft are playing in the NHL right now.
And you look at the Canadiens too. I mean, I'll talk about Connor Bedard. They have a lot of good young top draft picks here already. They have Suzuki, they have Caulfield. They had number 1 pick last year. Philip Massar, who was the first round pick last year also, he impressed me more than anybody else at the rookie camp this year. Another talented guy. Gooley, they have just so many young, talented guys on this team. And that's, again, why I say tanking. You don't want to create that losing environment in a locker room when you have so many young guys around. And the future at this point is looking much brighter for the Canadiens. Even if they finish 28th, I think they have an 8.5% chance of still getting Connor Bedard. So it's going to be interesting to see. As I said, I'd be shocked if the last place team wins the draft lottery 3 years in a row, just looking at the odds.
And I think it's fair to say that Kent Hughes' mentality, from what we've seen to date, is he likes to have guys with some character, some guys that he really feels want to be part of the organization. And I think this is going to be, critical, obviously, to his selection. And I have a lot of confidence in his decision making and the group of them to find guys that really are going to make the difference between marginal players and real good players down the road.
And he keeps
Just
making
to add
trades.
to that, one of the things they've done one of the things they've done. Sorry, one of the things they've done is improve their analytics department, and I think that's going to pay off mostly. I don't think Marty St. Louis is a big fan of analytics, and I think that he prefers to see what he sees on the ice. But I think that in the drafting and in the scouting and pro scouting and things like that, I think that's where the analytics are going to pay off.
And Hughes keeps making trades for former first-round draft picks. Kirby Dach, Gurianov's the latest example. We saw he had 6 shots in his debut with the Canadiens. He's picking up young, talented guys who maybe didn't work out where they were before and banking on Marty St. Louis being able to get the best out of them. He did it with Kirby Dach, and the start for Gurianov with 6 shots on goal was impressive.
Well, speaking of Ken Hughes, very active few days for him, acquiring Denis Gurianov and Chris Tierney in the last few days here, guys, as we move towards the trade deadline with what they can do down the road. But right now, what can Gurianov and Tierney bring to the 4 lines going towards the final 22 games of the regular season?
Well, I think that they're quite happy that they were able to get Gurianov I don't say off the team, but, relieved of the $5 million salary that he's making as a UFA and get something back in return. Gurianov, judging by what I've seen just briefly with his good size and his ability to skate is a real bonus to get something in return that has the potential to fit the mix. And, time will tell, but he has seemed to have some real desire to be part of the Montreal Canadiens, which is obviously a bonus. And Chris Tierney, he brings depth, obviously, in that position, that he's actually pretty good in the face-off circle and pretty responsible defensively. And, those kind of guys, hey, anybody that comes from the London Knights organization are not that bad.
I knew it.
Tierney's one of those guys. I mean, there's just so many injuries, as we mentioned earlier. They need bodies. And they also have a lot of young guys in the lineup, and they need some veteran experience, and he brings both of those things. He's an honest 200-foot hockey player, can take face-offs, can play on the 4th line, can move up if needs be. So that's sort of I don't think he plays a role in the Canadiens' future unless he really impresses Marty St. Louis and Ken Hughes and decide to keep him around in sort of a 4th-line role moving forward. I'd be surprised about that, though. But with Dadonov played a key role for the Canadiens, that he allowed them to dump Shea Weber's contract. That was a part of that trade. The Ken Hughes wanted to get rid of that contract, wanted to get Weber's contract off the books, and they had to take something in return, and they took Dadonov, and now they've turned that into Gurianov, as I mentioned earlier, 12th overall pick. He's a restricted free agent after this season. He's making $2.9 million this year, but the Canadiens have arbitration rights on him. So if he plays really well, they can keep him around. If he doesn't play well, he'll move elsewhere. But I think the trade was made with the idea that this is a guy who can fit into what they're building moving forward. Another young player with, obviously, you don't get drafted 12th overall if you don't have a lot of talent. He obviously has a lot of talent. We saw that already in this first game. He's got the shot. He's big. He looks really big on the ice, not afraid to go into the dirty areas. And as the Canes, I mentioned earlier, the Canes are banking on Marty St. Louis being able to bring out the best of him, like he did with Kirby Dach.
That's a 2-month experiment with Gurianov. They have to figure out whether he can play at the level that he showed in his first year. He had 20 goals in his rookie season, but his production has gone steadily downhill since then. And so I think that they're counting on Marty turning him around. If it doesn't work, they're just out. They basically got rid of Dadonov to free up some space there. But the $2.9 million qualifying is a fairly substantial offer. But if he proves that that he can play, then you have a situation. You might, if he does really well, you might find yourself in a difficult position because, say, he gets 10 goals, 11 goals over the last couple of months of the season. Then what do you have to pay him? You might have to pay him. You might find yourself in the same position they were in with Arturi Lehkonen, where they had to pay him at least as much as Yoel Armia. And that's a contract that's always going to haunt this team.
Yeah, when Gurianov was only getting about 12 minutes of ice time in Dallas, He obviously fell into the coach's doghouse there for whatever reason. He got 17 minutes his first game with Marty St. Louis as head coach. So they're going to, as you mentioned, Pat, it's an experiment, and they're going to play him a lot. I mean, they put him on the number one line for his first game. So they really want to take a good look at what they have here and then make that decision in the offseason of whether they qualify him or try and sign him to a longer-term deal.
The other thing is in Dallas, they were using him as a defensive forward, and that probably will help him in the long run because he is responsible in his own end.
Mm-hmm.
Want to bring up this point with Gurianov, though. He's a big game player. You think about it, right? He sent the Stars to the Stanley Cup final in the COVID era of hockey, and he did have a 4-goal game. So he does have the ability to score goals in robust efforts here. So, Pat, Rick, and Stu, like when you think about Gurianov's potential, I know we talk about these final 20 games being a referendum for him. Could Martin St. Louis be able to rectify his career and become a bona fide NHL player for the next 4 or 5 years if he stays that long with the Montreal Canadiens?
Well, that's the plan. And I mean, they're counting on a change of scenery. I mean, we always talk about players need a change of scenery. We saw that with Doc, and now we'll see what Gurianov can do with Marty there. And Marty has a way of motivating players, getting them to play his system. And I think he was pretty impressed with the performance last night from his post-game remarks.
And he's 25 years old, Gurianov, and Jonathan Drouin's contract is off the books after this season. He might be traded before Friday. We'll see what happens. But he could almost be like a replacement for Drouin, like another veteran forward who can come in a little bit younger. As I said, a 12th overall pick with talents there, and we'll see if Marty St. Louis can get it out of him.
And I really like the size of the guy and his ability to to skate, and that's the type of guys that Canadians are looking for. And it's entirely up to him now, and see he's going to be given every opportunity, obviously, with Martin at the helm, and show what he can show. And he has the ability. Now let's see if he can bring it each and every game.
I was talking with Mike Matheson recently. I asked him what he liked most about Marty St. Louis as a coach, and he said the way he communicates and the way he's able to give players confidence. So you have Gurianov coming from wasn't a great situation in Dallas. He comes to Montreal. He's on the number one line. He's on the power play. He gets 17 minutes of ice time. It's a pretty good way to give the guy an instant boost of confidence, along with a fresh start with a new team.
Well, if you're Ken Hughes, they've taken on reclamation projects in a way, right? Kirby Dach, as you guys mentioned before, was a guy that kind of came in 30 cents on the dollar, now being worthwhile for what they did. And perhaps this Gurianov project could be worthwhile for this Montreal Canadiens organization going towards the final 22 games and perhaps beyond that under Martin St. Louis. But we'll find out for Ken Hughes. He might be very active during the trade deadline. And if he is, we'll have that covered for you here on Hockey Inside Out. Gentlemen, in the month of February, taking away the game against San Jose to end off this month, the Habs power play has found its vigor, its dynamism, its cutting edge. 26% in the month of February. What has happened to this franchise in this power play effort, which has been much better than where it was in the prior months?
And that's without Cole Caulfield. I mean, I think what it is the power play has become less predictable. I mean, for years it was predictable because it was Shea Weber on the point. They get the puck back to Shea Weber for the big blast. Then it became predictable getting the puck to Caulfield on the side there, at the sideboards, and he'd shoot from there. So they're much less predictable now, which is a big thing. And also, they've been lacking that quarterback on the power play. They really haven't. And Mike Matheson, since he's been healthy and has been put in that spot, he's done really well. He's great at carrying the puck up. He's smart, makes good moves, has a good shot from the point. Also won the hardest shot competition at the Canadiens skills event, over 100 miles an hour. And the other thing with power plays is you got to win puck battles. You got to win losing, the rebounds. You got to get those pucks. And I look at a guy like Harvey Pinard, who's been called up, given a chance to play on the power play. In Laval, his nickname was Lavaliger because he plays like Brendan Gallagher, and he really does. So all those sort of things combined, less predictable, getting the quarterback, winning more loose puck battles so the puck doesn't get fired down the other end and you got to bring it back up and lose 20, 30 seconds that way. I think those are the things that have really factored in. And moving forward, I think it's something the Canadiens need to keep in mind when Caulfield's back and the other guys are back, to just be a little bit less predictable on the power play. We see the drop pass to Suzuki coming up the ice. They do it every single time. It's so predictable. And other teams around the league do it also. But they got to be less predictable moving forward into next season and beyond that. And I think that will help get them more success on the power play.
Well, yeah, I think Stu's right. I think they are, less predictable. I've never understood why teams do that thing where they come back and the last guy up carries it up the ice and then dumps it in, and I just don't understand it. I think that you've got 5 guys there and you got 4 guys defending. It means there should be a guy free, and I don't think that I don't think at times teams take full advantage of that. And I think one of the things that helps a little bit is movement. Everybody thinks of movement as the puck moving, but the players have to move at the same time. There's got to be an interaction between the players and the puck. Both of them have to be moving, so that there's constantly you're finding openings and basically forcing the defense to work a little harder. And if you're just moving the puck around, then it's pretty easy for the defense to set up a box and just wait for a shot and something like that. But if you move all the parts, it's a lot better. And I think that's one of the things they've been doing lately.
And like Pat says, I'm in agreement with the the movement that they're getting, both with bodies and with puck movement. But I was and have been very impressed with how quickly they're moving it now from point A to point B. And this is a big difference for me alongside the guys there on the blue line with Matheson and Barron. They're not afraid to shoot the puck anymore. And they got a lot more guys that are getting to the net, causing some problems in front and screens and rebounds. And when those type of things are happening and they're struggling, you keep it very simple, and seems to be working for them. They're getting shots through. They have pretty good shots, and they seem to be really committed in trying to correct this problem area that they've had all year. But I think a lot of it comes from the guys on the blue line and the fact that puck is not on anybody's stick too long, and they're doing some interchanging. And when they have an opportunity with an open lane, the puck is getting through, getting to the net, and they're picking up either deflections, rebounds, or causing a lot of problems for the opposition.
Well, you guys talking about players moving on the power play. With the game against San Jose, you watch Carlson on the blue line for the Sharks on the power play. He's all over the place. I mean, he's on pace for 100 points as a defenseman. Only you think it's about half a dozen players in NHL history have ever done that, or defensemen have done that. So you watch him, and he's back and forth along the blue line, moving in, moving out. And we're seeing a little bit more of that from Matheson now. Maybe because they were forced to do that, maybe because Caulfield's not there. They couldn't just keep feeding the puck to Caulfield. They had to come up with some different things. And but again, the quarterback is so key to having a good power play. And Matheson seems to be getting more comfortable each game with that. And as you mentioned, Justin Barron's been put in that spot too. And they can both shoot the puck, and they're both smart with the puck, making smart passes.
Bring up the point here from Stu when you mentioned about the ISO situation with Weber and Caulfield being at certain positions in the rink for the power play. In the final 22 games of this regular season, who's going to benefit most from the forwards? That's going to tell Martin St. Louis and the staff that this guy can be a part of the power play rotation next year and beyond.
Gurianov could be that guy. When you look at the shot and the one-timer you can let go, he could be a guy that, and there's a reason, apart from just confidence, there's a reason why they put him on the power play on his first game, because they want to see if he can have that spot, if he can be another option apart from Caulfield on the other side to shoot the puck.
I think the guy who's going to be proving himself is Harvey Pinard. And, here's a kid that, you didn't expect, the 5th round draft pick. He's getting an opportunity. He's not only – it's interesting because he's a small guy, but last night he had 3 block shots. He has a shorthanded goal. He has got power play goals. This guy can play in every situation, and that's a major surprise. And I think that there's room for him next year, but I think they have to figure out a way to get him on an offensive line, and that will be the key.
Yeah,
and thoughts?
No, I was just going to say, sorry, Gurianov, look at it's early, since his arrival, but obviously this guy might be the piece to step in there and make things happen. And one thing remains the same: he's going to get the opportunity, and he might make the difference out there.
And Harvey Pinard has done everything in his power to keep his spot in the lineup this season and make the Canadiens think hard about him having a future with this team. He does the work ethics there. He's got the ability to finish when he can. He's a younger version of Brendan Gallagher. I think he's got a little bit better hands than Gallagher. From distance, can score maybe further away than Brendan can. You know, Brendan would score 30 goals in a year and the puck would travel a combined 60 feet maybe. That's the way he scored, by just getting in the dirty areas and banging in rebounds and that. But as mentioned, Pat, with Harvey Pinard in an offensive role, I think that's key. But I wonder moving forward how much Marty St. Louis wants his fourth line to have an offensive role. I mean, the best defense is a good offense, right? So if you have a fourth line that has some offensive talent on it and can spend time in the other team's zone, that's a lot more effective than having three guys just sort of chasing around their own end and banging and hoping to chip the puck out and dump it in the other end.
I just wonder if he needs somebody to play with.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. He does everything. I mean, it's, as I say, Gallagher, it's a perfect nickname for him. You watch him play, and he reminds me so much of a healthy Brendan Gallagher, the way he plays the game. I
mean, he has success with Nick Suzuki, but would he have the same success with Chris Tierney?
Yeah,
that's or whoever that fourth line center is. Although they could be very strong down the middle. You get Doc back, get Suzuki. If they keep Sean Monahan, which is a possibility now, and they're certainly not going to move him this year. And if he's healthy, that's the big key, is whether he's healthy. And that's probably what is holding up any trade. Otherwise, he'd be gone by now. But I think that, if he's healthy, if they can get him at a reasonable term and a reasonable price, then there's it'll give you a lot of strength up the middle.
Yeah, at this point, you've got to wonder about Monahan's future moving forward, if he's going to be able to play. I mean, was just supposedly a broken foot, and I wonder, as I mentioned before, I think on this show, I wonder if playing on that broken foot might have affected his hips, that he had surgery on both of his hips. But I saw him after the game the other night walking around the outside the locker room, and he wasn't moving that well. Like, you could tell there's still something wrong with him. That's why he hasn't been skating.
Well, if you're the Montreal Canadiens fan base right now and the power play is going at this clip, let's not forget who's in the pipe right now. Lane Hudson, who could be the quarterback of this power play in the next couple of years from now. And if he is, and see what he's done in the NCAA ranks, this guy has that panache that you look for from that position as a quarterback in the power play. And that could be what Habs fans are going to be very excited for in the coming years. Well, that'll do for this episode of Hockey Inside Out. Don't forget to submit your questions and comments, and we look forward to conversing about that in a future episode. And check out the YouTube page for all the Hockey Inside Out information and episodes as well. And for the newsletters, sign up at MontrealGazette.com/newsletters. And for full episodes and bonus content, head on by Hockey Inside Out for all of that plus more. On behalf of Stu, Rick, and Pat, we wish you a great week. We'll speak to you soon. Bye for now.